And we're live. We are finally live. After
Awesome.
45 minutes of trials and tribulations, we are live.
Sorry, friends.
And we've got some Beer'd Brewing World at Large right here. See that? Thank you guys. This is really awesome. So for everyone watching, this is Precious Aaron from Beer'd Brewing out of Connecticut. I can't pronounce where you guys are from in Connecticut. Is it Stonington?
Stonington, just like it sounds.
All
It's
right.
funny, my buddy had to bury his dead cat the other day, and he said, I know why it's called Stonington now, because the fucking ground is full of stones.
That's that's
The
a
poor
good
cat.
that's a good way to finally realize why your city is what it is.
Yep.
Oh man. Well, I was turned on to you guys. Well, I guess we should speak to the people that are going to be watching. I was turned on to Beer'd Brewing by Vince that brews over at Night Shift, and Vince says that you guys are brewing some of the best IPAs and pale ales he's ever had.
Well, that's pretty bold, but I appreciate that to the fullest.
Is that some extra added pressure now for the future?
A little bit, a little bit. I mean, we've been our wheelhouse definitely includes double IPAs, single IPAs, and American Pales. But at the same time, I think we rock out some pretty good malty beers as well. I mean, we just put out one called the Crack of Noon Espresso Amber this past weekend, and people can't get enough of it, which is really cool. And it's also a little different because it kind of incorporated coffee into a beer that you would otherwise think should be a stout or a porter.
Yeah, right. I mean, I looked into that beer actually before we started talking. And what made you think to put coffee in that beer? If I guess explain it a little bit first of all, so people understand why I'm asking why you put coffee in the beer, and then
Sure. Go ahead.
No, no, go for it.
Yeah, so Precious is the brainchild behind this one. Normally, I would just be happy brewing IPAs, double IPAs, pale ales. But she said, hey, I've got this idea. I really want to rock out with an amber beer that has a coffee character without it being. It's kind of like the coffee IPAs that are coming out right now.
right.
And so she came up with this idea, and we went forward with it. I mean, I'll let you finish out here.
I'm a big porter stout fan, so coffee, full body, that's what I crave. Aaron's more of the hophead. And so summertime here in Stonington, as I'm sure, in other states, it gets a little hot. When you have a heat wave, you're not going to want a porter and definitely not a stout. So the whole idea was I wanted something that I could enjoy during the summer, hence the espresso amber ale. And
Right.
so the point, I did want to make sure that it had real coffee flavor. I didn't want to use any abstract or anything like that. I wanted real coffee flavor. And I'm not a sweet kind of fan either in any of my beers, my wine. I went a little bit on the drier side. And so we worked it on together. I mean, it's been about 6 months since I kind of handed him over saying, this is what I want to do. Here's the hops. We need to get our hands on this. Here's the grain. We need to get our hands on this. And then we finally just brewed it recently, and people love it. It's extremely fantastic to see
A
people's
couple of
reactions.
tweaks to the recipe, and here we are today. It definitely came out solid. It's kind of like an iced coffee. There's a lot of people who drink cream and sugar. I can't do that. I'm a black coffee kind of person, so it's definitely full-bodied as far as the coffee roast character goes, but it's still light in color and very sessionable.
That sounds pretty awesome. It sounds like something that would be really awesome for the summer. You see my dog running over there in the back?
I do. I kept
It's
looking at him.
National Dog Day, by the way. So
And that's why I'm including him in the interview, of course.
yeah,
For
there's
those,
a
of,
reason.
for those of you who weren't privy to our pre-broadcasts, nothing has gone right on my end today. And so yeah, I figured I'd let the dog just play in the background during the interview. All right, so I'm drinking a World at Large. It's an American Pale Ale, 6% ABV, and it says it features some of your favorite Pacific Northwest grown hops. Any indication what those hops are?
Specifically in that one, you're going to taste the Amarillo. That's one of my favorites to use because it's not only classic like IPA, just hop forward American Pale Ale, but on top of that, it gives you that really pink grapefruit character.
Right.
It's it's dank, as it says on the tag. It is definitely a dank characteristic, and I think that really resonates with a lot of the people who come in here for one reason or another. And so we really enjoy that one. It's a clean bittering profile, mainly all about those finishing hops, a little bit of whirlpool action, but mainly a giant dry hop with those Amarillo hops.
Yeah,
and a couple others mixed in there, but they're a little more secret.
I give a little bit of the color to the people watching. I'm absolutely loving this beer. I love that it's kind of like not 100% see-through. It's like, at all. The smell on it is just phenomenal. You get some of that dankness in it. And I love that it kind of coats your tongue. The hops coat your tongue without killing you with bitterness. It's because of, I guess, the late edition hops.
And that's been one of our huge focuses since day one was the IBU profiles on most of the beers that we produce here. So I'll brew a double IPA, and it only falls into the 80 IBU profile. Well, you go and look up the technical classification of that, and that might be outside the style guidelines, but it's neat for us because that's what most people are coming in looking for. They're not really looking for these big bitter hop bombs that they have been in the past. They're looking for more nuanced flavor profiles, a lot more late hop additions, and that's what we've been able to serve up with this. The other key on that one is the yeast profile that's coming through. Like you said, it's not quite see-through. We're using it's
I put that lightly.
It's not really an English ale strain, but it kind of is, and so it leaves most of our beers fairly opaque. So you can't quite see through them, and nothing's going to really drop right short of filtration. And we don't filter, fine or do any of that kind of stuff. So it's definitely something we've kind of targeted. And while in the past opaque beer has not been a good thing, I feel like that yeast character really comes through, and you're really tasting that yeast as well as the hops, as well as the malts, as well as the water profile. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really nicely balanced beer. I mean, I'm getting like a different flavor on the beer the entire way through my palate back down my throat. And like I told you before, I'm a huge pale ale IPA guy. I do a little home brewing myself, and I brew a lot of pale ales. I like to brew pale ales, but this is just, I wish I could brew this. I mean, this is awesome.
Look something up for you.
This is really awesome. I mean, it's see, this is my thing with IPAs and pale ales is there was like a period of time where everyone was just trying to out IBU each other, and I think they were forgetting that, just like in any other beverage or food, there's got to be balance to the product. And so when you're just throwing a bunch of hops in there to kill someone's palate, you go in there and you say, I just drank 1,000 IBUs, but to me, I can't do it. So to get something that's balanced, I could drink this all day, and you could pair this with food easier, I think. You can drink this on the beach, and it's gonna like refresh you. Not your mouth isn't gonna be
not slam you. Exactly.
Right. So I can't wait to try the double that we've got, which is
you're in for a treat.
Hobbit juice. But this World at Large is just awesome. So I know you're not having much of an issue getting rid of your beer. Up in Connecticut. I mean, you guys are open Friday through Sunday?
You got it. Friday 5 to 9 p.m., Saturday and Sunday 1 to 5. And frankly, 95% of the beer that we produce here at this point in time sells direct out of the tap room in growlers. So we're cranking through a lot of product direct to consumers, which is best for us because then we get direct feedback. We get to make sure our draft lines are clean. We get to make sure the beer is super fresh. I mean, pretty much we'll put out 3 batches a week, and 3 batches a week sell out. So it's definitely a tight pipeline, so to say, as far as manufacturing. For those of you who don't know, we are on a 3-barrel brew house. That's 93 gallons every time we brew. So same as Night Shift, just they have a split system, so it's 1.5 and 1.5. They're actually brewing 2 batches of beer at the same time. We brew that all in one system, end over end, and often it's doubled into 7-barrel fermenters, so 6 barrels worth of beer, and it's small, hands-on, labor-intensive, but it keeps the beer fresh, and I feel like that's the most key thing in the whole story here.
Awesome. I mean, that's got to be such a good feeling going home on a Sunday and thinking, man, 95%, or pretty much everything that I've been having sitting in my fermenter is gone. Just boom.
I mean, I know that everyone loves middlemen, but I guess I probably don't. So if we can cut the middlemen out and the distributors and the retailers and even the bars and just sell direct to consumers and get that direct feedback and get to know the people who are actually drinking our beer, then that makes us all the better, because then they can tell us, well, this is not really the flavor profile we're looking for. Maybe we're looking for something more like this. And so, I mean, it's no surprise that we've kind of delved into the hoppy beer range. So we're talking, again, the pale ales, the IPAs, the double IPAs, and that's really what our consumers are looking for. So we have no problem selling 10 barrels of beer a week in growlers.
That's awesome. That is so good. That's so cool, man. What year did you guys open up?
No, well, so we opened up November 2012. We actually started renting our space in April 2012, so it took a while to actually be up and operational between Fed, state, and so forth. So we're just going on our 2-year anniversary this November, which is very exciting. As of today, we've done 38 different brews.
Wow. So April to November is what it took you guys to open up. You know what it's taking people down here to open? It's
Crazy.
14 to 16 months to open in Miami.
Yep. Exactly. Well, a lot of that has to be, I have to take credit for a lot of that. I was an accountant in my previous life. And so for me, opening the brewery, I kind of looked at like an audit. So, all right, how do I get from point A to point Z without them asking any questions and as quickly and efficiently as possible?
Right.
So, like, all right, just provide them absolutely every piece of documentation they need at the start and try and kind of head them off at the pass as far as any questions go. So if I can make it very clear and easy for them to go and look at my packet and my application process, then why the hell not? So that's what we did. And like you said, a lot of people are taking north of a year. That's insane, because you have to pay rent for more than a year before you're able to make any money, and you have to buy all this equipment, and you need to have grain and hops ready to go on day one. So for us, it was a little bit of a godsend, but at the same time, I have to take a little bit of credit in the fact that we got it done so quickly and efficiently.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, it's funny you mentioned that you were an accountant past life, and because we've got a brewer down here, there's John Wakefield, who's also was an accountant. And he's
what's the brewery? Is that J-Dubs?
JW. Well, John Wakefield Brewing, JWB. J-Dubs
Gotcha.
up in Sarasota. J-Dubs up in Sarasota.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, but John was an accountant too, and he seems to be pushing it through pretty quick.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, that's the way it works.
Every brewer should go become an accountant first.
Well, you deal with the Fed. You're like, all right, I got to deal with the state. I got to deal with the independent auditors. They're going to be all up my you-know-what. So may as well be on top of it and get it done right.
Right. My wife's an accountant, and so maybe I got to convince her to open a brewery.
There you go. Next up, financing.
Yeah. So I know you took and this is going to sound really creepy the way I just thinking about asking this, but I know you took a course called Beers of the World in college.
Correct. Yeah, I myself went through Beers of the World, but it all started with Wines of the World. So I was, yeah, exactly. I was basically done with my core courses and decided I needed to fill some electives because I had to do that before I could get my degree. And the electives available were like human health, sociology, ag, so other stupid shit. And then there was Wines of the World. So it was a wine tasting course, and I started with that. So I basically went in every week and would try about 5 different wines. And you actually took one of these courses with me.
Luckily, it was educational, so I happened to be under 21. but because it was educational, it was, accepted. There was a dumb bucket.
Yep.
There was a dumb bucket. But it definitely started this whole craft idea, supporting local, instead of just buying what's on the shelf, really analyzing, well, what do we want? What kind of varieties do we have?
So I ended up taking Wines of the World 1, Wines of the World 2, viticulture, and then in my senior year, I was like at the end of it, ready to go. I just needed one more elective. I managed to luck into a course called Beer'd the World at the Rochester Institute of Technology, in case anybody out there wants to go.
They didn't pay for that plug, all right? So.
So anyway, I ended up lucking into the course Beers of the World, and it was the same thing as the Wines of the World course. You tried about 5 different beers every class, and the final was actually a blind tasting where it was all beers you had tried previously in the course. But what they did is you had to name if it was an ale or a lager first for points. Then you had to name the style of beer for points. Then you had to name for bonus points the actual the region it came from. And then on top of that, if you could name the actual beer, because you had tried it once previously in the course.
Oh.
So, it's like, all right, I know a Newcastle Brown Ale blind. Like, these kind of things are no surprise to me. And so it was kind of cool to go through that final and actually get credit for it. So that was kind of where we started. And then I ended up going to a store called Beers of the World. It was a warehouse beer store, and every aisle had different countries listed, and you could try beers from all over the U.S. as well as all over the world.
Are you reading my outline? Because
I cheated.
Yeah. What is this? What beers were they? What were the beers? See, I know how to speak English. What were the beers that you tried in your adventures at Beers of the World? Let's call them adventures.
Oh my gosh.
Shit, I'm gonna start doing this. So.
In particular, because I was still a poor college student, I did drink a lot of Long Trail, coming from upstate New York. That was readily available, as well as a lot of their seasonals. I wasn't quite as into craft beer, like, I didn't know the big names. I wasn't into sours. I don't even know if sours really existed back then. I'm sure they did, but at the end of the day, so I drank a lot of Mendocino. I drank a lot of Long Trail. I drank a lot of Saranac. Yeah, absolutely, because they were all very readily available, very cheap. Ithaca from upstate New York. A lot of Southern Tier. That was pretty much the closest quality brewery to us. So those bombers, I mean, they've been around forever, and we did do our fair share of damage on there.
We were the odd couple that would go to the keg party and bring our own beer.
Yeah.
Where beer pong was just a whole nother realm for us.
You played beer pong with these 7-8% alcohol beers.
Yeah. The thing is, you got to get really good, or else you're not gonna do well that night. So we got really good at beer pong, and drank out of side cups.
Side cups, yes. You don't want that ball going into craft beer.
Oh, Jesus. That could be bad.
Yes, it certainly could.
Let's play beer pong with a 12% Imperial Stout.
I don't know if we did much of that. It was mostly the pale ales.
I can't drink that stuff. No. It's gotta be the Imperial Stout. I can't even imagine. So, what was your? I think I've been doing research. I do that every once in a while. I think it's your mom that pushed you into brewing. I think didn't Precious and your mom buy you your first brew kit?
Yeah, my mother bought my first brew kit. She actually bought me my first brew kettle. So it was just for an extract brew on the kitchen stove, and then Precious bought the first 2 brew kits for me. So I started on the kits like most people do, and it was extract, partial mash, grains, whatever. It wasn't anything intricate, and they both came out. The first 2 came out fairly well, and from that point, I kind of got the bug. It was like, all right, I brewed 2 on the kitchen stove and clogged the sink, about 4 times between 2 batches.
Right.
I'm like, oh, you can just dump all those hops into the sink. No, you can't. So anyway, I quickly moved out to the garage and started doing all grain brewing. I built myself a 3-tier brew house system, and I was doing 10 gallons at a time, all grain, and I bought a couple of conical fermenters, and I bought, a pump, and I started with a plate chiller, and it blew up very, very quickly, to the point where I was kind of brewing once a weekend at least. And so I'd brew once a weekend, and I had a kegerator, and I had a whole fleet of kegs, and I'd keep it full, much like most people do. And at that point, I'd actually fill my friends' growlers, and I'd be like, all right, take this home because I need this keg empty so that I can brew another batch. Like your friend earlier tonight that was saying,
Yeah.
got a little bit of pale ale left, you got to get rid of it.
Yeah.
He wants to brew again or whatever. So anyway, from there, I ended up doing a little bit of time at a local brewery called Cottrell. They're not so little. They're 40 barrels in size compared to our 3 barrels in size. And I did about 2 years of volunteer work over there, not continuous, but just taking off time from my day job as often as I could. So once every 2 weeks or so, I think would be the average. And I managed to jump up the kind of pecking order from the start. I went in and started making work rather than standing on the bottling line and sealing cases. So it was really cool because I got to learn from somebody, commercially brewing on a large scale, and it really gave us, the heads up on what's going to go on here.
Do you think it's necessary for someone who wants to open a brewery up to get that kind of experience? I mean, is that...
I'm not going to say it's necessary. There are home brewers out there who are amazingly epic, and I wish them all the best. I am going to say that in my personal opinion, you absolutely should do it. If you do not have any commercial experience, you're not going to know the ins and outs. As much research as you can do on the internet is never going to get you to that point, and I feel like a lot of I don't want to get down on homebrewers. Like I said, there are homebrewers out there that are probably producing better beer than I am. But at the end of the day, I think it's very important to learn commercial brewing because it's a business and there's a lot of regulation that is not involved in homebrewing. So you need to have your record keeping down. You need to have your inventory down. You need to have and inventory management for that point. You run out of one grain that you need, and you've really kind of missed the ball. So I think it's extremely important to get your feet wet, even if it's just mopping floors at a local brewery, to kind of learn what goes on and what to expect.
Yeah.
And brewing on weekends once a week, that's one thing. Brewing 5 batches a week is a completely different story. I mean, it's fun. I love it, but at the end of the day, you're a janitor.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. We do like a 10 questions, and I'm opening the next one we're going to talk about in a second. But I do these 10 questions on the website, which hopefully you'll do one that we can put up. And most of the brewers, when I ask them what's their advice for someone who may want to open up a brewery, they always say, make sure you don't mind cleaning, or make sure you know how to clean.
Agreed. I completely agree with that. I mean, 95% of this job is cleaning. Anything from mopping floors to, cleaning tanks, CIP tanks. It's funny because one of the jokes I have with one of the assistants we have here is anybody who comes in and asks us, can I help out? Which we get a ton. We get a ton of them. Some are serious, some are not. You've got to kind of feel that out. But one of the jokes we have is, how well do you know how to mop stairs? Because grain dust goes everywhere. And they have a set of stairs painted black. And so once a week, they need to be mopped. And, when the hell have you ever mopped a set of stairs?
Right.
I'm sure. So
right.
That's a little inside joke we have going on here. It's pretty great.
That's pretty. So you guys are definite proponents of go intern or go learn from somebody else who is brewing right now, brewing commercially, brewing somebody who has to meet the expectation of a bar, that has to have a keg somewhere, or at least has to meet the expectations of the customer before you go off and do this on your own.
I am 100% on board with that, and I think Precious is as well. Without doing this and kind of getting your feet wet, I think that you wouldn't really know what's going on. Right?
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, so I am 100% like, get yourself a mentor, get yourself somebody who's going to deal with you and put up with your misgivings. I mean, I think we're up to like 5 years where people have messed them up, and they turn out to be awesome because we figured out what the hell happened and, fixed it in the interim.
Look at this guy drinking Hill Farm. Look at this guy drinking Hill Farmstead during an interview. Like, it's all good.
Little Florence. Why not?
Oh, man. By the way, I just poured out, we're going to take a pause. I just poured out Hobbit juice. It is 9.2%, and it's single hopped with Nelson Sauvin. And I just smelled it, and it's like unlike any other double IPA I've ever smelled in my life.
It's the juice, man.
Oh my God!
You'll love this.
So Hobbit Juice is one of our top-rated beers. We really love it because it's a unique beer as well. I've never tried anything like that before.
No, I haven't even tried it yet. The smell is like unlike any other. And look at the lacing on this thing. It's incredible. Look at the color.
And that's out of
Wow.
Yeah, so we filled that like we fill our growlers. So it's been warm for a couple of days, yada yada.
Hobbit juice.
Yes. Yes.
Watch out, it's 9%.
This is what you don't mow your lawn with. What I tell everyone, don't mow your lawn with Hobbit juice.
Right, you're going to end up with zigzags.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my.
So it's 100% Nelson Sauvin. Nelson is really hard to come by right now. We managed to find a line on it where it's pretty accessible to us. Again, I love brewing the double IPAs. I wish I could have sent you two. I've got one called Dogs and Boats coming out this weekend. It's Citra and Mosaic. People go friggin' nuts over it. But anyway, that's a good example of what we're putting out here as far as the doubles go. So it's clean. You're not going to taste the hot alcohol whatsoever.
No.
That one, the descriptor I think on the tag says stone fruits and white wine as far as, Sauvignon Blanc wine goes. It might actually be nice and clear for you too. It's had a little bit of time to kind of settle in that bomber, but might still be a little opaque. Again, we're using our signature house yeast, and it's one of our favorites. So we try and keep it on all the time, but it doesn't necessarily stick around for more than 2 days at any given time.
Right. This is out of control. You don't taste the alcohol. I'm putting it up so people can see it. The way it works is when I'm talking, somehow the camera knows I'm talking. And when you're talking, somehow the camera knows you're talking, and it'll switch back and forth. So
it goes back and forth. I was telling you about this earlier.
Yeah. So, and by the way, just so you know, also, I was going to shave today, and I left my beard because we're interviewing beard.
I'm glad you did. It's very fitting, and I think you should keep it. I don't think you should get rid of it. If your job doesn't say you should totally keep it.
I'm my own boss. I can keep this thing if I want. So
there you go. Well, then answer.
Okay. So the tag on this thing saying white wine.
Yes.
And Sauvignon Blanc. Yes, it's incredible. I mean, it's like a minerally white wine. I wouldn't necessarily say it's like one of those oak-aged white wines. It's kind of buttery. I mean, this thing is clean. It's exactly like Sauvignon Blanc. You don't taste the alcohol. I mean, the smell is just, you got a little bit of the floralness. I mean, it's out of control. This is good, man. This is good.
I'm glad you enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, I would be buying all the growlers, I think, if I lived there. I would probably be the one waiting.
You might have to wait for a 30-minute long line, though. That's the problem. So we've become known for a few particular beers, like Hobbit Juice, like Dogs and Boats, like Canoes, and now the line just kind of...
Vegemite.
Yeah, Vegemite Sandwich, double IPA. the line becomes long. It's great. People come in. We do. So the format for the brewery, again, we're 3 barrels in size. We have a nice little tap room. You come in, you try anywhere from 3 to 5 beers. We've been striving to keep it up at 5, but demand obviously exceeds the supply recently. So if we have 5 beers on, you get 10 ounces, 2 ounces per sample, and it's complimentary. If you like one, then you take some home to go, and you do that in a growler, which is great.
This is awesome. I mean, if you're taking it home in a growler, you're always getting fresh beer, which is just like, you know.
Exactly.
The other day I was in Total Wine, which is I don't know if you guys have Total Wine up there. I think it's
I've heard of it.
Okay, and I'm looking at a beer from imported beer from Italy. It's like a lager or something, and the date on it is June of 2013.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh god. so yeah.
At least it was a lager and not an IPA.
Right. That's a saving grace, I guess. That's a silver lining. That's a silver lining. So okay, so let's backtrack a little bit. Your mom buys you your first equipment for brewing. So
yeah.
What did your parents do for a living? And because look, the reason I'm asking you this is because my mom, when I started brewing, was like, you know, what the hell are you doing? You're gonna be drinking beer all the time, this and that, and your mom's like throwing you into it. Were they in the I mean, did they do anything in the culinary world? Was it just
I guess what I have to do is preface this with my nationality. So my father is Italian. His parents came over on the boat. My mother is Irish. She is not a citizen. She has her immigrant card, her permanent alien card, green card. And so anyway, she married my father, and so she's straight up Irish. Not a big drinker, never has been. She had a horse accident when she was a kid and ended up with brain damage, so she never could really drink that much. She is now the marketing director for the Mystic Aquarium. It's one of the biggest institutions, I'd say, in Connecticut. As far as tourism goes, it's a huge draw to the area. That's right here in Mystic. So when we met in school, and I ended up with a job first because I was a year ahead of Precious, and it was in accounting. I wanted to get back to the coast. I had to get back to the coast. There's something about the ocean air. At Rochester, it just kind of sucked. And so anyway, I found a job. Moved back. Precious followed me a couple months later when she was done with school, and we were living in the area. And so my mom was like, you know, all you're doing is going to work and coming home and doing nothing but drinking beer. You may as well learn to make it like a hobby. So because I'd go to the package store every day and buy like 2 good bombers and just down those, and then that was it. And so she said, you know, why don't you learn to make it? So they got together on my Christmas gifts that year, and they were like, all right, look, why don't you start to learn to make beer? And so I started and never stopped.
There you go. And let me tell you, you learned pretty well. This thing, I mean, every sip is getting better. I mean, it's an awesome beer. I haven't had any beers that smell like this. It's really nice, man. I mean, you don't feel the alcohol content at all, and it's such a nice. Yeah, it's dangerous because, and I know what the alcohol content is. It's like the other day, I met a little home brewer that started to open a brewery, and they have like a raspberry lambic. And I was like, oh, I could drink this all day. And the guy goes, no, you can't. It's 9.2. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. I can't.
You can try, but
you'll be dead in an hour and a half. That's fine. So how long have you been brewing then? I mean, you opened up in, you said 2012. How long were you brewing before that?
Since 2009, I would say.
Yeah, about that. 2008, 2009. Yeah, so it hasn't been that many years, but like I said, it was very important to get that commercial experience.
The years don't matter so much when you're brewing once, 2, 3 times a week, I mean, the years kind of, who cares about the years?
Another piece of advice I always give to people coming in who are home brewing or whatever, how do I get better at home brewing, is pick a recipe and stick to it. And then when you nail it every single time, then you're ready to branch out. There's a lot of people, not only in the home brewing but commercial brewing world out there, who are like, I'm just going to throw in all sorts of crazy things and see how it turns out, and then I'm going to brew it once. And it's like, well, that's not really what this is all about. You're supposed to be able to repeat on a fairly regular basis a certain style of beer. And so that really starts to kind of put you in the direction of becoming a commercial brewer. I mean, if habit juice is not habit juice every single time, then people are going to get frustrated and annoyed with us, and that's not going to work for us. So that's what I always end up telling people. Like, look, you should try and nail a pale ale before you start throwing in habanero pepper or kind of deviating from the normal recipe that you would have.
Right.
And so, yeah, while it's been 2008 through now, it hasn't been that long. But again, I focused on brew the same beer. And then when I was at Cottrell, obviously I had to brew the same beer every single time. So that was really cool.
Again, the years don't necessarily matter so much when you brewed that same recipe 20 times in 3 months or something.
Exactly.
You've got the practice down.
I think part of it, though, too, Aaron, though, had, the bug, bit him, the beer bug. And so even though he was producing maybe sometimes the same beer, he was also reading up on it, trying to figure, okay, what's with the water, what's with the grain, what's with the hops. And so he wasn't looking at just the big picture. He was looking at every component, every piece of the puzzle. And so I think that also helped him. I mean, our pillow talk became beer. These hops, water, all of that was our pillow talk. And he'd read these books, and he just couldn't get enough of it. And I think that's what really helped. He also, once he would nail one down, he wasn't necessarily sticking to only IPAs or something. Myself, liking porters and stouts, he would try to diverse it a little bit and go on a stout or a porter side of it, because he just wanted to try a variety of different kinds of beers and challenge himself.
Right.
And I think that was fun. He challenged himself.
Isn't that funny? I would rather drink a pale ale or an IPA all day long, and my wife would rather drink massive stouts and huge, high alcohol, barrel aged beers all day long.
I to each their own. I mean, we get people in here all summer long, and it's 90 degrees in the tap room because it's just that hot. And they're like, "Where's the Midnight Oil Oatmeal Stout?" Well, you're like one of 5 people who want to drink that this season, so not coming back until fall time. Sorry.
Not brewed anytime soon. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And on a tiny little system with our tiny little cold storage, it is what it is. We have to brew seasonally, and we have to be on top of that as far as what's coming out and when.
Have you guys been shocked by the reception to your beer? I mean, to be honest, when I started researching you guys and I started learning how fast you were selling your beer, I was blown away. I mean, it's incredible. And then you start doing all the beer advocate searches and the rate beer searches and all that type of stuff, and you see that people are just going nuts. Was that like, holy shit, we're here? I mean,
it's still very shocking. I mean, we did not expect to have what we have year 2. We didn't expect to have what we have year 1. Aaron left his day job over a year ago now. We didn't plan for anyone to depart from their full-time employment until year 3. So we're definitely shocked.
If at all, she means.
If at all, but
I never thought I'd leave my day job. I thought I would still be doing this on nights and weekends and that during my 40 hours a week, and it was going to be what it was. We'd sell a few growlers every week and pay for some of the bills here, and I'd end up having to plow some of my cash in. But at that point, I was homebrewing every weekend anyway, so why the hell not?
Right. And so was your goal always, I guess, originally just kind of like, hey, we're going to sell whatever I can brew at this time, and just it's gonna be more of a hobby company in the first place, and then it was just kind of like, well, now we have to make this a business because everyone loves it so much.
I mean, it was always a goal to leave my day job. I think from day one, that's what I told her. It was like, look, we're going to start this thing, and ultimately I want to leave my day job. But being very cautious, both of us, it was like, well, when it happens, and it probably won't, but good luck. So I ended up working my day job from November of 2012 while this was open all the way through May of 2013. So it's just about 6 months or so. And it was really difficult working from 8 to 5 at the day job and then coming here from 5 to 1. And then she's like, when are you coming home? It's like, I got to wash these kegs. Like, they have to. They're not going to do themselves. We want this done on the weekend. And it became, I guess, out of hand very quickly. So we ended up kind of having that conversation like, look, all right, maybe I should reduce my hours at my day job. So then I went down to 32 hours a week instead of a 40-hour work week. And it's like, all right, whatever, I'm not making any more money or whatever by doing that because I wasn't taking any draw from this. We weren't getting paid for this. But that's because we wanted to plow all the cash back in. And at this point, we ended up getting to the point where it was like, all right, time to make the jump. This is making more revenue than what the day job could ever pay us, and then the sky's the limit. So we started, I think we probably should have prefaced this with like the fact that we didn't actually take out any loans or debt or outside financing to do this. That's a pretty key part.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day,
maybe that's a trick. You started small. You started really small.
And we bootstrapped, and everybody says you can't do it. And while I'm going to tell you it's extremely difficult to do it, you can do it. It just takes a lot of late nights and holding down 2 jobs for a while and making sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. For us, we've been very prudent from day one. It's like, all right, we need to watch our expenses, and we need to make sure we're not paying more than what we need to pay for growlers and for grain and that kind of thing, and then finding the right hops and then finding the market. The golden ticket, I suppose, for us has been the fact that 95% of our beer sells directly to consumers.
Right.
When you start talking distribution to bars and restaurants, you don't make anything. So it's really difficult to make a living.
Margins. I mean, a huge hit of margins.
Out the door. Done.
Right. I got a question for you guys from a viewer.
Fire away.
All right, this is Edward. What was the first beer that you consider that you mastered? Okay, I think it's a 3-part question. So what was the first beer you consider that you mastered? How many brews did it take you to get there, and when did you know it was ready?
I missed the last part. The last part of the question.
Okay. First beer you mastered, how many brews it took you to get there, and then when did you know that it was ready to go? Like, when did you know that it was ready to sell to a consumer?
I'd say it was the Whiskered Wit. Our flagship is a wit beer. I don't even really go out of my way to get wheat beers. Most people don't go out of their way to get wheat beers, but when they're done really well and done right, for me, the whole thing was the coriander and the Belgian wit style was really kind of putting me out there. I was not really a fan of it. So I decided, you know what, I want to make a wheat beer that I'm going to enjoy. So I developed a recipe, and I started going at it, and I started brewing it. And it took me, I don't even think it took very long. I mean, maybe 3 or 4 batches before I kind of dialed it in. And I'm like, all right, this is the one. This is it. It's malted wheat. It's got a little bit of Munich. It's got Pilsner as well. It's mainly wheat, though. And then on top of that, I pile in a little bit of Curacao orange peel in the boil towards the end, towards flame out. So it only steeps in there for like 20 minutes or so. It's really not a ton. And then I use Hellertau hops as well as Saaz hops, or Sots, however you want to say it, to kind of add that character. And for me, it took maybe 3 or 4 batches, like I said, and then I just started going at it. And I brewed that a few times, and I was like, all right, this is the one. We nailed it. We nailed it. People are going to really like this. This is an entry-level craft beer for a lot of people in this area. You know, it's not some crazy double IPA. It's not some kind of fruited beer. It doesn't have peppers in it or potatoes or pumpkins or whatever the frig you want to put in there. So it was a pretty straightforward beer. And at that point, what was part 3 of the question?
Oh, how did you know?
How did we know it was there? Just I knew, because I could give it to anyone, and they'd be like, I really appreciate the character in this beer. I really like it. And while you're homebrewing, I mean, you give your beer to everybody, and they always say it's awesome. In reality, they're thinking it's and like, oh, Johnny brewed a great beer, but not really. So I just started getting really like requests for it outside of me soliciting them to drink it. Some friends would be like, "Hey, can I get a growler of that? Is this available? Can I get it?" Instead of, "Oh, you're gonna let me sample your homebrew." So at that point, we ended up testing it out to the public, and it was like after we had signed the lease on this place, and just that's how it worked out. So I had already had my base styles done though, like stout. I had a nailed stout recipe. I had a nailed porter. I had a nailed IPA. Double IPAs in the system. So I had a few different recipes that were ready to roll from day one, and then this was the one where I was like, I could bring this to the commercial level because it's repeatable, I'm nailing it every single time, and people like it.
There you go. That's the answer. That was a very thorough answer. Not only...
And even to expand even more, like it didn't include Citra or Simcoe or Mosaic or any of these hot hops. It was stuff I could get my hands on if I personally brew. So I get questions every single week, like, how do I open a brewery? And it's, you have to kind of fetter through that. But a lot of people are like, well, how hard is it to get Citra? Well, it's pretty freaking hard.
Right.
You're not necessarily going to get Citra and Simcoe and Amarillo and Mosaic every single week. You're going to have to get really lucky. And on top of that, you're probably going to pay double what they're actually worth. And it's because they're all contracted out until 2017.
Right, you have to find a small farm or a small family farm that's going to have that hop, but it's going to be, what I'm hearing, talking to other brewers, is double the price from what, maybe Dogfish Head or Stone or one
and
of
as much as the small farms, that's not the case. The problem is those are not trademarked, I forget the word, patented, I guess. I don't know what it is with plants, but they are proprietary property. So those farms, those ranches, like Yakima Chief Ranch does Simcoe, I believe, they have exclusive rights to those roots that grow those vines that grow those hops. And so nobody else is allowed to grow them. And they have a monopoly on the actual brand. So as much as I'd like to grow my own field of Simcoe and Citra, I'm not allowed to.
No, look at that. Somebody I didn't know. So we got another question in. You ready? You ready? Want another question?
Fire away, man.
All right. This is Antonio. I think Antonio has the urge to maybe get his own brewery open because he wants to know, first of all, how did you get into getting the first commercial equipment? And 2, how did you get into the public eye and create a buzz, enough to create some sort of a tap room and have people coming into your tap room to buy your beer? How do you get to the market that way? How did you do it?
So that's a very good question. I think I'll let you answer the second part. The first part of the question is, how do you get into commercial equipment? I mean, save your money, save your pennies. It's not cheap, and you need to shop around. Right now, the used market is extremely hot. To kind of give a situation where we were in recently, before we bought our keg washer, I was looking for a very specific brand, a very specific style, and it happened to come up on the used market, and it would have saved me several $1,000s by buying this used equipment. I was up at 5 a.m. one day. It was listed at about 5:20, I saw it be listed on the used market, and I immediately sent out the email, sent the phone calls, and was like, I'll pay cash right now. I'll pay you more than what you're asking because it's worth more than you're asking. And it was already sold. It's before it's listed. So the used market's very hot. You need to kind of plan for, well, as people like ourselves grow into larger systems, we're going to a 7 soon, so R3 is available. But again, it's very hot. There's a lot. There's 10 people for one listing. So you have to be very diligent about looking, and you have to have cash on hand. And by cash on hand, I mean cash on hand, ready to write a check and put it in the mail immediately. If not, PayPal that guy the money. So it's difficult. You just have to be diligent and funded, and you'll get it. And then the second part of the question, I think I'm going to let you answer.
So the second part of the question, asking how do we get people to come to us more. So when we first, actually before we opened, we did a Founders Club. We were trying to figure out a good way without having investors to help kind of get that momentum of regular customers, to also help with some of the extra money that is required, because you should always budget 30% plus, we've realized.
50%. 50%. Whatever you're quoted, add 50% to. We're going through an expansion right now, and it's 50%.
So anyways, we did a Founders Club. So we limited to 100 people. And we basically had it so they have discounts throughout the year. They get their first merchandise. They also get to do a great party before we even open our doors. And that really helps start that word of mouth. The word of mouth is the most important thing. You need to have a foundation of craft beer lovers, because they're going to tell their friend is then going to tell their friend, and so forth. And that's how we actually have to have
How do you create that? How do you create it? You go to festivals and pour beer. We did
it completely different. We actually did more with social media. We did with social media, but we're also at a location being in Stonington, Connecticut, where farmers markets are more popular, where you're definitely going more local. So we also did when we're in an old American velvet mill, and twice a year we do a big, huge gathering social night. So we made sure even before our doors were open that we had a little booth set up, a little table, promoting ourselves, who we are, what we are, and the whole idea of craft. And that really helped to it. But again, word of mouth, one person tells a friend and so forth, and that is more powerful than any advertisement we can do.
So the mantra from day one has been penetrate deep instead of wide. I know that sounds terrible, but it's true. It's true. Penetrate deep instead of wide. So we have about 5 draft accounts. We can barely keep up with them. We've wanted to stay very, very local, and from day one, that's been our mantra. So we ended up starting the Founders Club. We had 100 people signed up, and they all had growlers in hand from day one, so that when we opened our doors, 100 people were like, holy shit, how do I get this thing filled? And how do I do it twice more if I only have one? So they bought growlers from day one. They came in. We threw a grand opening party with a +1 for them, so that 100 people who knew about us all of a sudden was 200 people who knew about us. We started the social media very early, but I wouldn't say so early to the point where like plans are not coming to fruition. It was basically the day we signed our lease to make this thing a commercial operation, because that's where people are missing the ball nowadays. Is they're starting it for their homebrew operation, and then people kind of take it as like, it's just Joe. He's got a homebrew operation. He's never going to be legit. It was like, all right, here's the leaf on paper. Like, look, guys, we're going for this. And so people
we're a legitimate operation. You will get return for your investment here.
Exactly. So then we started marketing our Founders Club, and while at the beginning it was friends and family and few and far between, towards the end, in the last 2 months of offering our Founders Club, it was like, I've never heard of these people in my life, and they're giving me $100, and we've never actually even sold a drop of beer to them. So it was really unique, a very unique situation. And then again, having face-to-face contact, like Precious and myself, up until the last 2 weeks, have pretty much been here every single time the tap room has been open. So over the course of 2 years, we've been here, and they know us. And so people really identify with the fact that, this is a Joe Schmo. He's making beer. He's trying to make this living, and I'm gonna go there and support him, and they're gonna talk to me, and they're the owners. They're the people who are really doing it, rather than just like, this is a Chipotle where they hire out all the staff and nobody knows who the hell the owner is, and nobody really cares either because it's not something you identify with. Like, oh, my burrito's really good, but at the end of the day, it's like it's a burrito. It's not craft beer.
Right. I think that's been huge. I mean, I think you got to the grain of the issue here is that people are really starting to appreciate more going into somewhere and knowing this was created here. This was created using as much local ingredients as possible. This may have been in collaboration with a local business. And people are appreciating that more. And I think that has really led to the growth of craft beer in general. I got a follow-up question from Antonio, and he wants to know. Yeah, he's. I think he wants to open up a brewery. How many barrels do you recommend someone starts with? I mean, you guys are. I think. So, for example, and I'm going to preface this question just with kind of what's going on down here. A lot of the breweries that are opening down here are opening up with really big systems, and I think you guys opened up very small. How many barrels did you open up with, and would you recommend opening up with that many barrels, or if not, how many would you recommend opening up with?
Precious is going to grab our charger because the laptop's about to die, but we'll prevent it. So you're stuck with just me. So at the end of the day, the brew length we opened with was 3 barrels. That's 93 gallons. I opened with 12 barrels worth of fermentation capacity, so that is 4 3-barrel fermenters. And I didn't even have a bright tank from day one, to be honest. Bright tank came later. It was only a matter of weeks until that came, but I was carbonating beer in individual kegs, which don't do it. Just save the money, save the couple of $1,000s for a bright tank. It's a nightmare to do it that way. And then your commercial accounts will thank you later for not doing it that way. We were Bootstrap 101. We got into a really great lease deal where we, had the world given to us. I mean, all of the opportunities were given to us. We signed a very low lease rate per square foot. We got into a facility where some of our utilities were included in our lease rate, so that was huge for us because it's a fixed rate rather than all of a sudden I brewed 10 more batches this month, and so my utility bill is 10 times higher. So that was really important.
I can imagine that's massive.
To be honest, if I could have started with a 7 or the business plan we wrote was for a 15-barrel brewery. Would I have started there? Absolutely. And would I have been doing quite as well? Maybe not. At the end of the day, the freshness is what's key. And while we're selling, 10 barrels of beer a week right now, back when we first started, it's amazing to think that an hour of being open now was what we do in an entire day when we first opened. So again, while we had those first 100 founders and their friends all sign up, we didn't really sell a ton of beer off the bat. While it was a lot, it was not enough. And so if I had a 15-barrel batch, it might take a month to a month and a half to kind of blow through. I don't want to drink a month and a half old double IPA, so why not start with something smaller? And then now, our first step was to start double batching into double batch fermenters so that we can kind of catch up. And you can do that with the brew house. That's the most expensive part. The fermenters are all add-ons. You can add those later. And then now, like I said, we're about to get into a 7 to 10 barrel system, so we can start doubling into 14s to 20s, and then go from there. And like I said, we also haven't scratched the surface as far as draft distribution goes, but draft distribution is not where you make your money.
That is an awesome. You guys are really giving the best answers possible. I think they should be happy with the answers you're giving.
I try. The other question for you is, and you may not even know, are you guys able to retail pints from a manufacturer in Florida?
Well, you mean in a tap room?
Yeah, in a tap room.
Yeah.
So no matter what, like there's no special license or anything?
Um, I think that I mean yes, there's different licenses for off-site consumption versus on-site consumption, but yeah, I mean you can open a tap. I
For
mean,
us in Connecticut, up until like 2 months after we got our initial manufacturer license, all we were able to do is complimentary samples. We cannot sell you any beer for consumption on site. And then on top of that, we're able to retail for off-site consumption. But it used to be, again, with the same license that went through that I'll talk about after, it used to be 8 liters per person per day, which is like 1 beer short of a case. Now it's now it's 9 liters per person per day, so that's like 4.5 growlers. And then they just a couple of months after we actually opened our doors and got all our licensing out of the way, they ended up coming out with a license that costs a little bit more. It's only to the point where you'll make that back in a day by retailing pints for on-site consumption. But they came out with that, and what that allows you to do is sell as a tap room, like we were just talking about. And honestly, that's the holy grail. That's how you make your money, and that's how you make
right.
this thing that's small very viable.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we just did an interview with Winwood Brewing, the first production brewery down here in Miami, and the founder of the brewery gave us his statistic. I guess what you call statistics, or the economics that make up his brewery. And 20% of his product is sold in house, 80% goes out, but 20% accounts for 45 to 50% of his income.
Of the revenue, exactly.
Yep.
It's crazy how that works, but that's just how it is. There's no middlemen, there's no bars, there's no distribution expenses. It totally makes sense.
Right. And I don't know why in Florida. I mean, I don't know if you guys heard about it, but the craft breweries had a very rough.
Controversial that was going through, right?
Right. And they were trying to kill tap rooms, which would, in essence, it would kill the craft beer industry down in Florida.
Totally.
And I was going to ask you about this, but you've already been talking about it so much in the interview that I don't need to. But it's obvious how much self-distribution has helped you, and how much being able to sell in-house has helped you. To me, it's all about we're helping local and small businesses grow. I mean, the mantra that beer is for drunkards needs to go out the window. I mean, look, you drink a growler of this, and you're gonna be feeling it. But at the same time, you're not drinking this just to feel it. I mean, you're drinking this and you're enjoying it. You're with some friends. It's the same thing as a bottle of wine, and wine has a larger alcohol content. And wine doesn't have that same mantra, and so the whole go local, I think, is helping out with a little bit of the.
And I want to expand on it a little bit. So I'm not a member. We are a member of the Brewers Association, the national trade organization for brewers. We are not a member of the Beer Institute. And there's 2 laws going around right now, two bills going around right now that both involve excise tax reductions for brewers. I'm not going to get into that, but they're a little bit different. One study that came out today, actually, via something that the Beer Institute funded, was that for every 1 job in a manufacturing brewery, they create 45 other, like, ulterior kind of what's the word I'm looking for? 45 other jobs, essentially, in other industries. So there's all these echelons, 45 full-time jobs for every one of me. Now that feels really fucking good because what? Like I'm doing this, but at the same time you have to think about the employees in the tap rooms. You have to think about all the people who are doing logistics for all the trucking companies, all the people who are, malting barley or working in one of those supply houses. And so 45 individuals for every 1 person who's actually manufacturing beer. And I think that it's really cool and very rewarding to kind of be a part of that. And like you said, it's not so much about getting drunk, and it's about alcohol manufacturing. I'm sure you could say the same thing about the distilling and wine industries. I'm sure the stats are very damn close. I mean, while the vineyard industry might not, employ so many people so far away, they might be all on site, but at the same time, it's very close. So it's kind of a cool industry to be a part of, and that we're giving back to kind of the community and enjoying a positive lifestyle at the same time. I think it's all just very neat.
Yeah, look, and I'm a huge supporter of local businesses and bring local business together. And I think that there's, I mean, I've said this in a couple of interviews. I don't know that there's anything more American right now than craft beer. I mean, you guys are, I mean, look at you. This is like a couple, and they're starting a business together, and you guys are doing it together, and you're killing it. And, and why are we going to stifle that? I mean, people are enjoying what you guys are doing.
Well,
and it's not.
I feel like the only thing that's more American than this is if we were making American flags.
Right. Yeah, you know what? That's a good example.
We're manufacturing something that's in the United States. It's hard to imagine that the biggest American-owned brewery is Yingling. I mean, that's astonishing. And I think we need to get back to where we're producing an item in the States instead of just being for consumers, and that's what we've become. And we're not consuming our own American-made products. We're consuming foreign-owned. So I definitely think that's part of it. We're definitely getting back. I think our generation is definitely trying to. We need to create jobs. We need to produce things. We need to grow as the United States. So I think that helps with the craft movement. We're definitely trying to get back into quality over quantity.
Sure, and I think that's what's huge about the craft beer industry is that you talk to any brewer and that's what they want, and I think that's what the consumers want nowadays. It's incredible that during a recession time, people are willing to pay more money for beer, and the craft beer industry has grown during a recession, and so it's kind of going. What I kind of say is it's kind of going back to our traditionalist roots, and it's innovative in that we haven't done it in so long, but we're going back to what really made us as a country, made Belgium, made Germany, and we're going back to that, and it's innovative to do that, but I think that it's something that it should be nurtured. I think that we should protect this. And protect families like you guys. I mean, this is important stuff. It's more than just beer.
You look at pre-prohibition, and there was a beer maker on every block.
Right.
They of German descent, whatever descent they were of, but that's where the term growler even came from. It was a stainless steel pot that you carried home, or your kids carried home, and it rumbled on the way home or growled. And so there's never been a prohibition against bread, and there's never been a prohibition against T-shirts and all that kind of stuff. And so those industries have totally proliferated since the 30s, whereas now we are finally getting to a point where there's more manufacturers of alcohol or beer in particular than there was pre-prohibition, and it's creating jobs, and it's creating community, and it's creating just good neighbors. We in particular definitely feel that way because this is a velvet mill. So they used to make velvet in the building, and it employed over 300 people from the local community. If you go outside our front door, there's mill housing surrounding the entire building, and then this manufacturing building in the middle of it. So it was a community of people who used to work in here, and now we get to know all of our neighbors. We know them pretty much almost every single house. I could walk down the street and say, I know that's where Tom lives. I know that's where fucking Jim lives, where Greg lives. And it's really cool because it creates community, and it's getting back to that point where it's a local community supporting itself instead of outsourcing everything and going shopping at Walmart.
Right. What's amazing is that when you guys posted that you were about to start the interview, one of your neighbors, Mystic Knotwork on Instagram,
Yep.
They wrote to me and they said that you'll love this couple. We share the same building and they are fun people.
And they're the same. They're the same story, though.
Right, and that's amazing. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. It's a sense of community that you're building. It's not just beer. You're not just drinking something to get drunk. You're building a community.
A community, exactly. And in that community, we need beer and knots.
That's right. That's right.
Totally.
Okay, now, all right, let's get back to you guys. I want to get into a little bit. See, we're already at over an hour. Normally, I try and end these things, but this is going awesome. You guys are an awesome group of people to talk to. So screw it. You know, if people don't want to listen to more than an hour, forget it. They can turn the internet off. You know? All right. I want to keep going. Are you guys okay with that?
Find some internet.
You guys are good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. So I want to talk about the night shift collaboration with our buddy Vince, and then I'm going to get into. Actually, you know what? Before we get into that, I have a question from a guy named Vince Tercy.
Oh gosh.
Vince, that's right. Vince brews at Night Shift. You guys may know him, or I don't know.
I might have hung out with him a little while.
Yeah. He says, "What the hell are you doing with those port barrels?"
So the answer to those port barrels is they are sitting on gas right now. Just sulfur gas, and as soon as he wants to come down here and brew a collaboration so we can actually like get some night shift barrel age stuff going on in here, Vince, I'm talking to you, then we're going to do something with them. But until then, I think I'm just going to hold on to them. There's 4 of them, Vince. I brew 6 barrels at a time. You do the math. Let's get this done.
Okay, pause. I am going to fly to Connecticut for that collaboration.
I'll tell you what. Even some of the people who work here, we luckily. So I had met Vince several months ago, and then we went to the American Craft Beer Festival. Beer'd Brewing was not pouring at the American Craft Beer Festival put on by Beer Advocate in Boston this past year or the year prior. This year we went as just a team. We brought everybody. We got ourselves all hotel rooms right across the street. We had a good time, and so I contacted Vince. Because we had been at the previous facility and had not seen the new facility as of now. So they're in like 16,000 square feet. Ridiculous. So much room for activities. And so anyway, I contacted them and said, you know, you guys are not open on Sunday. Can we please just like come take a look around? Because that's really cool for us. They started at about the same barrel size, and they are much larger now. And so anyway, he said, absolutely. And those guys, I can't think of a more hospitable group and a nicer group of people to just kind of hang out and spend a day with. They don't know us for shit. They know our brand, but they're just so welcoming, and now we do know them, which is really cool. And so this one guy, Keith, who works for us, when he saw the room of barrels and barrel aging projects going on there, he's like, we just asked Vince to talk about barrel aging a little bit more. And so he was just so into it. And it's because Vince and those guys know so much about it, and they're really at the forefront of the modern barrel aging projects that are happening, you know, doing different things with grape must and all the different fruits, and then the Weizen beers, the Weiss beers, that it's really cool. And to hook up with them and kind of have them as friends is more than awesome. For us, I know in our entire life, like, we've always tried to garner friends who like bring something to the table. I mean, why do you want to hang out with somebody who's just kind of leeching off you all the time?
Right. And you know what? They were one of the. I was up in Boston and I saw that wall of barrels in the old brewery.
Yes.
And I'm walking around with my camera taking pictures. And I'm like, geez, this is amazing. You know, and the one cool thing that I noticed was that all their employees were in the brewery. They were talking to customers. They all really seemed to love what they were doing. And on top of that, they're throwing in some crazy shit into their beers that nobody else is throwing into their beers.
Correct.
And you kind of read it and you're like, whoa, what's that going to taste like? And then you taste it and it's like,
and it's well put together. Exactly.
Wow. They're another brewer that focuses on balance, I think. You know, and I think that okay, this is gonna be an awe moment for Vince to like say that you are producing some of the best pale ales and IPAs that he's ever tried. I think coming from a guy like him who is an amazing brewer, really says a lot about you. It says a lot about your brewery and what you two are doing. And you know, it sounds like I'm sucking up, but it's true. You know,
I agree.
look, this thing,
I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, that guy, just the entire crew, You know, you can ask them questions and they know the answers like that. It's not like, oh, let me go research that or let me go look at my computer because I don't really know the answer. And that's so valuable. And they're bringing so much to the table and kind of getting the name out there for a lot of people, which is so cool as well. So just happy that we kind of built a relationship with them and hope that we can continue it into the future. We've got a batch of IPA that we brewed about a week ago here. Vince came down and visited us, so that'll be coming out in a couple of weeks. I don't think it's Labor Day week, maybe the one after, if not just prior. Anyway, so really happy to kind of lift up our skirts and show them what's going on here. And the same for them. I mean, when we were up there, it's like, all right, show me your ugly parts because I want to see it all. And so as a brewer, I learned so much from that. It's one of those things where, you know, if I'm inside my box all day, every day, and I don't have anybody bringing anything to the table that's worth anything, then I'm never going to exceed and kind of do better than what I'm currently doing. So to go and learn from people like that and then have them come in and, you know, again, be inside my box and tell me like, oh, maybe you can look at it this way, maybe you can look at it that way. That's how the entire craft kind of advances, which is really important to me.
and kind of piggybacking on that, you guys brew out of pale ales and IPAs. So what were some of the pale ales and IPAs that inspired you to start brewing pale ales and IPAs? If you could name 3 off the top of your head, what would it be? Like, what were the pale ales and IPAs and double IPAs?
That's really tough. So let's start with Two Hearted. Bell's Two Hearted.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
just flavorful. It was all about flavor and aroma. That is not an IBU bomb by any means.
Right.
And honestly, is that classified a pale or an IPA? I don't even know. It's right in
I don't
between.
know. People call it
awesome.
People call it an IPA, but I don't know the difference. I mean, that's when people ask me, "Hey, I like IPAs. What should I go buy at the store?" I always tell them, Bell's Two Hearted is always in that list of beers they should go pick up.
If you got to get somebody started, that is the number one answer. Number 2, I think, and as cliche as it sounds, I gotta say Heady Topper. We're from the Northeast. We did the pilgrimage before the cannery was actually shut down. That was post us opening, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that was post us opening. I mean, I'd had Heady Topper before that, obviously, and those guys nail it. Kimmick, again, if you can nail one beer all the time, every time, and make it awesome,
Delicious.
then fantastic. The other thing we learned from them is the demand-supply issue. You know, that's important as well.
Right.
You're brewing
There's
something.
definitely high demand for that beer.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then on top of that, now what that affords them to do is build another brewery so they can have a visitor center, and on top of that, they're able to brew different beers. I mean, Petite Mutant and Pressure and Beelzebub or whatever. And so it all comes from the brew pub, but at the same time, I feel like that's important because you've got your one Keep Your Lights On beer, which is more than Keep Your Lights On for them, but they're able to kind of express themselves in a different manner. So that's really important, and that's more of a philosophical learning experience for us. What the hell would you say the last one would be? The third, American Pale or IPA? I mean, it's got to be something from the West Coast. I'd say.
Mine's Pliny. Mine's Pliny the Elder.
It's got to be Pliny, right?
That's the definition to me of a perfect beer. I mean, that
exactly.
beer is. That beer's
so
good.
And I've only had less than 5 of them in my entire life.
Yeah.
But awesome beer. I mean, you can't get better than that, especially when it's fresh. And so that kind of set the bar for everybody as far as the West Coast IPA style goes, which is what I feel like we're kind of chasing the tail of it with low IBUs. I mean, not necessarily chasing the tail, but changing up a little bit.
Sure.
But again, low IBUs and just full flavor, and using those really big citrusy grapefruit bombs of hops to kind of elicit these characters.
Right. And let me tell you, this beer, I'm on my last few sips, but and, you know, a lot of IPAs. I know, no, you're gonna have to send me more. I'll do whatever you need.
When it comes back out in a month.
Yeah, whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. I think I may be the first person in Miami to actually try this beer. You know,
You more than likely are. I have not seen any Miami check-ins on Untapped, so.
No, I think I am. So I feel very privileged and honored because this beer, you know, a lot of IPAs, as they get warmer, the hops kind of start to kill you.
Yeah.
It starts to feel more like a really, really big barley wine, I guess. I don't know. The hops change. The profile changes.
Agreed.
Because of the, I think it's because of Nelson that you guys use.
That and the other tip is, all right, don't use any crystal malt. No crystal malt. There it is. There's the secret. None.
Right. A little drier. But it's just, it's staying with the stone fruit. So it's still really nice. I mean, the hops are a little more pronounced as it warms. You get a little more, you know.
Definitely. As that thing warms up, it's bomb.
Yeah, but it's still so smooth. I mean, it's incredible. It's a really well-made beer. You know, so I'm gonna do one of these for you. I don't know. I saw Prince doing that at MTV Music Awards, so I guess I'll do it.
I'll do it.
So, all right. So we're getting through here. And one of the things I'm always interested in, and going back to Night Shift collaboration, is, you know, and it's a kind of a two-part question, but how important are collaborations to young breweries? And two, how do they come about? I mean, how did you get linked up with them?
I've got to say that the importance I already kind of covered. It's for young brewers, young breweries. It's getting somebody else inside your wheelhouse and then telling you maybe you should try it this way, or maybe you should try it that way, or they just validate your current processes, so you know you're doing it right. And so, you know, while I might feel more comfortable in the hop realm, well, Night Shift in particular, barrel aging is like their jam, and so I might be able to garner some of that information from them, even just through casual conversation. And then as far as how it comes about, I'll let you answer that one.
I think how it comes about is you have two breweries, two brewers that just have a passion for craft beer that, you know, find out, hey, we should do something together. I don't think it's something that you plan. I think it's something that just happens. It's talking, it's discussing craft beer, and then the idea, the epiphany of, hey, let's do a collaboration, because either we can learn a lot from each other, or we have very common, similar ideas. Let's do something together. I think it also keeps things new and fresh. I think an important thing for brewers is to continue to evolve, continue to brew different new things. I mean, let's be honest, no one wants to make the same pizza every day. We want to do new, different things, and I think that helps with collaboration brews. You're able to really expand your horizon.
Agreed, and try different things. And so for us with Night Shift in particular, the way it specifically came about was Vince, his parents live in Connecticut. So he was visiting mom and dad. He called me up on some Tuesday or Monday, I don't even remember what day it was, but said, hey, I'm the brewer from Night Shift. And I'm like, oh my God, the brewer from Night Shift is on the phone. What do I do? And so I invited him over, and I gave him a couple of different beers, and he seemed to enjoy them at least. And we kind of just like realized all of a sudden our brewing mantra is almost the same, so why don't we hang out and kind of make this thing happen, which was really cool.
It's like a date for craft beer guys.
It's a bro date.
Pretty much, that's all it is.
Do we go to dinner? Oh man, that might be too big. Maybe coffee. Maybe
Precious brings dinner to them. That's kind of how it happens.
It's like, no, we'll just drink a bunch of beer. It'll be cool. Whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, at least everyone's on the same page on that first date.
Exactly. You know you aren't getting this.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Terrible.
That's
Terrible.
awesome. I'm happy you guys did it because Night Shift. I mean, to me, they're one of the most innovative breweries in the country, and to be associated with them, I think it speaks. And again, I keep saying this term, but it speaks volumes of your brewery that they want to associate their Night Shift brand that they've established with Beer'd Brewing, right? And so, congratulations on that. I think it's an amazing thing.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next thing I'm going to congratulate you on is your being named the best brewery in Connecticut by Connecticut Magazine. And let me quote, can I read this? Why it's the best. Beer'd embodies what the microbrewery movement is all about. Finely craft beer made in small batches by a brewing genius.
I can't even believe they use that word genius.
I was
Like,
yeah,
what?
that's
I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy. But I can't express how thankful we are for this. And I don't know what the metrics were that went into it, but Connecticut Magazine's a pretty big deal, and they do this every year. And to be even thought about with the likes of New England Brewing Company, Nebco. Two Roads, they're a brewing giant. I mean, they're not only brewing their own awesome beers, but on top of that, they're brewing other things like Lawson's Sip of Sunshine out of their establishment. To even be considered in that same realm is just overwhelming. I think I couldn't stop smiling for an entire day on Monday when I saw that because wow, wow.
I sound like I'm sucking up. See, this is the thing. I'm doing like a beer review on interview with the brewer. Most people do the beer review completely independent, so no matter what they say, oh, this beer sucks, this beer's great. Like people are like, oh yeah, I believe him because the brewer's nowhere near him.
Yeah, exactly.
You're looking at me as I'm reviewing the beer.
You're an asshole.
Yeah. But you know what, man? I mean, look, one of the things that's always gotten me in trouble in life has been that I'm too honest with people. And so this beer is absolutely amazing. I mean, it is. I'm telling you, I want to fly to Connecticut just to fill a growler and come back. So I understand what they're talking about. I mean, it's really awesome. I mean, they called your whiskered wit a tasty work of liquid art.
It's crazy. I can't even believe they used those words, but I'm thankful for it. I don't know. I think they pulled one of our beers that they had tried. Maybe they haven't tried all 30.
38 now.
38 beers
now.
we've done since opening.
38 beer.
But they picked a good one. I wouldn't brew it if it was.
But they call it a tasty work of liquid art. Isn't that what it's all about? I mean, craft brewing. I mean, you're producing. Do you see yourself as an artist? I mean, you're
Totally.
producing liquid art.
I see myself. Primarily, I see myself as a janitor. Secondarily, I see myself as a scientist, and finally, I see myself as an artist because it does take a little bit of art, it takes a little bit of science, and then a whole ton of janitorial work. So, it does take a little bit, but you'll get there. It's cool. I think it's unique and just so blessed to be honored in such a manner. Again, like I said, amongst so many other quality brews. Like all we ever hear is Gandhi Bot, New England Brewing Company, Two Roads, Road to Ruin. Like they brew Sip of Sunshine. They're awesome. They're fantastic. And to be even thought about in that realm is really, really just mind blowing to us.
Precious has had such a genuine smile on her face the entire time we've been talking about this. That's awesome. I mean, I'm really happy for you guys.
We found out at about the same time. All of a sudden, our Twitter feed started just blowing up, absolutely exploding. It's like, what the hell is going on Twitter? We don't even use that much. And so we saw that people were talking about this award or whatever, and from there it was like, wow, that's incredible.
Do you think this award?
It feels really good knowing where we came from day one to today. You know, we work 80 hours plus, and we tried to make this happen, and it went from homebrew to a hobby to a business that just escalated into what we have today. And for us, this is our baby. At the end of the day, this is our baby. And to have our baby be rated as one of the best breweries in Connecticut is the best thing any parent could ask for.
The best brewery in Connecticut.
I do with parents of Beer'd Brewing.
And then on top of that, I have to give you a little my background. I've always been a perfectionist. Like, an A is not enough. It needs to be an A plus. It's just not enough, and I'm really hard on myself. So since day one with this thing, I've always said, you know, I wouldn't have started it if I didn't want to be the best in the state. And so we're going for it. I mean, more kudos to those guys who are holding it right now, but that's the whole goal. I want to brew better beer, and that's going to bring the whole system up. I mean, everybody's going to kind of raise their game if better beer is available to everyone on a regular basis. And right now, obviously, we can't do anything more than what we're doing. But if I didn't want to do very well and produce the best beer ever, then why even start?
That's a really good way to look at things. I mean, that's the way you should look at anything. It's a life point, a life lesson.
Agreed.
Right. And here's a really important. Here's as we're winding down now. Here's a very important question. Precious, how much more attracted to you is he as that beard grows? How much more attracted to him are you?
Well,
I was overthinking the question, and I stated it wrong. Okay, I was talking during that. He just rubbed his beard all over her face.
I'm used to it. Well, Aaron and I actually have been together 9 years now, and I think he's had his beard for 7 of those years. He kept it nice, clean shaved, kind of.
It looked kind of like your beard.
Yeah, nice.
It totally looked like your beard. Maybe a little bit more full.
I'm kind of jealous of your beard. Not
Go
kind
for
of,
it.
by kind of. Let me replace that. I'm very jealous of your beard.
I know though if he were to shave it, and he will agree with me that he would be like a young boy with a beer belly, and we'd get ID'd everywhere.
It'd be really ugly. Nobody wants to see that. So.
I don't mind his beard. Maybe one day we could do something to trim it up for charity. I'm all for that.
Oh, am I bringing something? Am I bringing up a relationship point here?
No.
A point of contention here?
Yeah. She keeps telling me, "Oh, when we get married, we have to shave it."
Yeah, trim it. Yeah, I didn't say shave it.
I don't know. We've got a brand now. It's funny. It's because we even had a Mustache Brewing Company off of Long Island here yesterday, and so his whole gig is obviously he's got a big ass mustache.
So what you're saying is if I ever interview them, I just got to do this.
Yes, exactly. Done. Right there.
Tell Lori that we said hello.
The whole interview like this.
Exactly. So, anyway, I don't even know where I was going.
I don't know.
It's so funny because she keeps talking
about
shaving
it.
Shaving it. Exactly. Oh, yeah. The fact that customers come in and they're like, you have to, if you ever shave, you can't have that beard or that brewery. They think I got that one already. Think I figured that out already.
All right, man. So, kind of the parting question, or one of this is second to last. So, you've been named the #1 brewer in Connecticut. Okay, not one of the best in Connecticut. And if you have done one beer advocate or rate beer search of your beers, you've seen the ratings. All right, I mean they're amazing, right? Does this add any pressure on you does this add any pressure on you as a brewery?
It totally does.
And
It absolutely. I'm gonna roll with it. Yes, it absolutely does stress me out. Every day I check my Untapped ratings. I check the Beer Advocate ratings. I am a little bit guilty of not checking Rate Beer every day, but we don't get nearly as many things about us on there. I check the forums on Beer Advocate. And I find that it's very useful and valuable to know what people are saying about us and about our beers, because if you're not getting feedback, how are you getting better? You're not. You might think that you're brewing the best beer ever, and it's not really. So we try and take some of the feedback with a grain of salt. We get a lot of people who say, oh, I don't like wheat beers, and then they rate our wit as a 1 or whatever, and it's like, well, you're not being objective at all. All you're doing is saying, well, you don't like it, so too bad, it's a 1. So it really helps kind of guide what's coming out the doors here. And while, again, I've said it before, like, while I don't like to pander to our customers and our patrons, and I mean pander, I do like to pander. If people are asking for one thing in particular and they really like it, or they're looking for one characteristic in particular, I will kind of develop a recipe or go in that direction.
All right. Last question I got to ask. This was sent in by a listener by the name of Vincent Tercy.
Oh my.
He wants to know, has the change of yeast in your brewery affected the way that you brew?
Vince, you motherfucker. It has, because the yeast is going to lend you different characters at the end of the day. It's going to give you a little more malty sweetness, a little more peach characteristic. It's also going to make you order pitches a lot more regularly, because it mutates a little quicker and becomes something completely different after 6 generations, whereas California Ale can go out 10 generations and be completely fine. So you have to be a little more on your toes. It's a little more interesting dealing with it, because it's just a completely different yeast. So yes, it completely changed a lot of our recipes. We have to, not completely, obviously it's still the same grain and still the same hop bill, but we might have to mash a little bit different. We might have to change the water profile so we can elicit a little more different character out of it. I really am happy Vince asked me this question, because it's in depth and I got to answer it. So thank you, Vince.
All right, I'm gonna let you guys go. It's late. It's 9:20 already. I want to thank you guys for being part of our site. I want to say that I'm very happy that I think I may be one of the first people in Miami to try your beer.
Definitely.
I'm incredibly impressed by your beer. I'm not saying that just because you're sitting in front of me.
I'll look for the Beer Advocate rating later.
No, you know what? I don't even need to do it. Anything that you guys need me to do, I'm gonna do, because let me tell you, the pale ale. I mean, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then the Hobbit juice. I mean, this thing. There's nothing of it left. That beer is so delicious. I can't even begin to tell you how much I appreciate that beer. That what?
We're certainly happy with it.
Yeah, it is. It's phenomenal. I mean, there's so much to it. It's complex. It's balanced. It's 9.3, and you can drink the hell out of it. That what?
9.2.
You're right. 9.2. You're right. Let's just make everything clear. So I've had 2, and I'm already a huge believer, a huge fan of what you guys are doing. I wish you nothing but the best. I want you guys to grow and grow and grow. I want you, even though you want to stay local, I want to be able to go to a store and buy your beer here in Miami. And so, congratulations on what you've done. Congratulations on being named the #1 brewer in Connecticut. I know that nothing but good is going to come to you guys. I love that you guys are doing it together. I love that you guys symbolize local business. I love that you guys symbolize bringing a community together. And that's what this is all about, inclusion, not exclusion. And I love that you guys are doing very balanced, approachable beers that can get a lot of people that maybe weren't into beer before into this stuff. I mean, so good. So thank you for sitting with me for almost 2 hours. It felt like half an hour. It was a lot of fun.
And I did.
You guys do in the future.
I hope so.
Thank
you again for having us, and keep up the good work. We always need the evangelists.
That's right. I like that, man. I'm gonna say craftman evangelist. I'm gonna make a business card.
Right? That's awesome.
All right. Well, everyone who watched, thank you so much for the questions. Thank you for watching. This is Beer'd Brewing. Be on the lookout. They are doing incredible beers. And, if you can get your hands on a growler, if you can find somebody in Connecticut that can send you a growler and you can trade, please do it. Do yourself the favor of trying their beers. All right, guys.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you.
Much appreciated.
Bye. Cheers.